Okay, so this is the character I'm currently using in Elder Scrolls Online in Cyrodiil for PvP mostly, but also it's a great PvE build. And the reason for that is because it has a lot of AoE damage, a lot of strong AoE damage, and its escape is just great. So let me just show you over here. I'm number 89 actually, on the Emperor leaderboard, so I just started playing, but by the time I'm finished playing today, I'm probably gonna go back to number 70, which I was where I left the game. Okay, so I'm gonna take you guys step by step into this build and how you can achieve it. Let me just show you over here real quick what you're gonna get with this build currently as it is fully buffed. We're gonna have 3600 weapon damage, 60% weapon critical, spell resistance 20k, and physical resistance 18k. Alright, so these are pretty decent stuff. As you can see over here, I have some health and some stamina. I'm not using magical at all, so I don't need that. Alright, so let's just get this started with. First of all, I'm gonna take care of the skills. On my first bar over here, as you can see, I have Binding Javelin, Bombard, Arrow Barrage, Repentance, Camouflaged Hunter, and Flawless Dawnbreaker. And on my second bar over here, I have Resolving Vigor, Anti-Cavalry Caltrops, Retreating Maneuver, Unstoppable, Rally, and Devouring Swarm. Alright, so let's just get in a little bit more on why I'm using these skills. Okay, so first of all, I'm using Binding Javelin. This is pretty straightforward because it deals a lot of damage. Its casting time is instant, which means I can pretty much spam it all I want. Alright, now this is also a very helpful skill in 1v1 situations. Now this build is made pretty much for AoE damage. However, there are those times where you actually can't really use your AoE damage against just one single opponent, so you're gonna have to use a skill for just one opponent. This is a very good skill. And also, since I'm using this Adric Spear skill over here, I have it slotted, I can actually take advantage of the following skills. Okay, Piercing Spear. While an Adric Spear ability is slotted, it increases the damage bonus for critical strikes by 10% and your damage against blocking targets by 10%. So only by having this skill slotted over here, every AoE damage from this Bombard and Arrow Barrage skills are increased in critical hits by 10% and also against blocking targets by 10%. So I'm obviously using it even though I'm not using the skill itself. Another reason that I'm using the Binding Javelin and not the Spear Shards is because it does a lot of damage against single targets. I need that, okay? I need to have a lot of damage against single targets. And also it has this Burning Light passive that has a chance to proc a 25% chance actually to cause an extra 3.2k magic damage. So it's a pretty decent chance. That's pretty much like 1 in 4. Also, I'm using over here Balanced Warrior, which increases my weapon damage by 6% and my spell resistance by 2.6k. Now my second skill, I'm using Bombard because I have that root ability. Every time I'm hitting enemies, you know, I'm fighting a lot of them. So I need to have as much damage as I can, and I need to give them as much, how can I say this, as much reason to just retreat, okay? As much reason as I can for them, you know, to scare them away, to make them retreat, because this is pretty much my build. This is what it does, you know, it deals a lot of damage in a very short period of time, and it also, you know, it's that kind of build that you're gonna use to go in, fight like 10 people at a time, and then just quickly go out, you know, see what you're doing, see the damage you're doing. Maybe you have some reinforcements that are gonna help you, you know, to clear those guys out. You're not going to be able to do them alone, most likely, but there are those shots that you can actually do that. Okay, this is why I'm using Bombard. Also, it has a lot of physical damage. I'm not using the poison one because that is pretty much a damage over time effect that can be purified very easily, and I'm not going to go for that. I'm using Arrow Barrage over here because it has an increased radius, which is what I need, and it deals more damage. As you can see, I have 1.1k physical damage every 0.5 seconds for 8 seconds. That's 2k damage roughly per second. 2 or 8, that's 16k total damage. So if I can fight a bunch of players in a small area for the whole duration of this skill, you know, I'm dealing a lot of damage with only this skill. Next, I'm using Repentance. The reason I'm using Repentance is because it grants me those passive recoveries, minor Fortitude, minor Endurance, and minor Intellect, which increases my health and stamina magical recovery by 10%. Also, I'm able to consecrate the Souls of the Fallen, and you know, in Zerg fights where there are many players, many dead people, this skill is actually very useful. You pretty much use all your stamina just spamming skills, and all of a sudden you just press the 4 button and you're pretty much full again. So this is a very useful skill to have. The next skill is Camouflaged Hunter. I'm using this because, well, fairly obvious, there are a lot of vampires and werewolves out there, and also because I get Major Savagery, which increases my weapon critical rating by 2k, which is pretty cool. Without it, I'm gonna have like 50% critical rate, and I'm just, you know, I'd better use the 60% critical rate. And as the ultimate, I have Flawless Dawnbreaker, which increases my weapon damage by 8%. This is pretty much the only reason I'm using this skill. Also, it's pretty good in 1v1 or 1v2 situations against vampires or werewolves. So this is pretty cool. So this is my first bar. On my second bar over here, as you can see, I'm using the two-hander. I'm just gonna start with that. This is my healing and my escape plus buff bar. Okay, so I'm not using any special skills over here. I'm using Resolving Vigor because I need to heal myself in fights. I'm using anti-cavalry caltrops because I'm doing AOE damage, and I usually open up with anti-cavalry caltrops just to reduce the player's movement speed in that area, you know, so I can fire up a bunch of my other skills. Over here I'm using Retreating Maneuver and Unstoppable. The reason why I'm using Unstoppable is because I need to deal a lot of AOE damage in a short period of time, which means I'm gonna have to face a lot of players. Facing a lot of players is very hard, especially when they knock back you or they stun you. This skill gives me immunity to knock back and disabling effects for 5 seconds. 5 very precious seconds. Okay, so this is a great skill, and not only that, it also gives me some resistances, some magic resistances and spell resist and physical resistances. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is pretty cool. Also, it has a 15-second duration, which is pretty decent. You know, I don't have to spam it all the time. Also, it's very easy to use because you can actually see. You don't have to check out your buffs over there on the right side of the screen. You pretty much just see it, and when it's done, you know to use it again. Okay, let's just go over here. I'm using over here Rally, of course, in order to buff myself. It gives me Major Brutality, increasing my weapon damage by 20%. Since I'm a bow user, it's very useful. Also heals me for 893 every 2 seconds and an additional 1k when the effect ends. That's, you know, something. It's not the best, but it's something. It's decent. Now over here on the ultimate I have Devouring Swarm, and you're probably gonna ask, yeah, but why do you have Devouring Swarm? You could place a meteor over here, or I don't know, anything else. The reason why I'm using Devouring Swarms is because I'm fighting a lot of players a lot of times. That's what I'm doing. This is what this class is about, fighting a high number of people at the same time. And the reason why I'm using Devouring Swarm is because when I see my shot, you just know your shot, you just see it. You know, you're fighting against your enemy, your people, and all of a sudden you see them like swamped a little bit. They're exactly in the middle of your AoE. They're starting to go down a little bit, their health is going down, and you just see your shot, you know, to just go in there and spam everything you got. So what I'm doing is I'm opening up with the Devouring Swarm, run into a dodge roll just in the middle of them, and then swap on my bow and start bombarding everything in sight. Okay, this is like the finishing move, and with this move, it's not very common to encounter such situations, but you do encounter a lot of them. And with this move, you get around 6 to 10k, if not more, AP per fight. So this is a real alliance point farm. Trust me, I know because I'm using it. Anyway, so these are pretty much the skills that I'm using over here. As you can see, I'm using Essence of Stamina, and the reason for that is because I have a lot of stamina regeneration, and I have the Resolving Vigor, which heals me, so I don't need those very expensive Tri-Stat potions. I can pretty much hang in there with this Essence of Stamina. Of course, if you're using Tri-Stat potions, that's even greater. But, you know, whatever. I don't have the money for it, so I'm just gonna use the basic Essence of Stamina. So here are the items that I'm using. I currently don't have top-notch items because, as you can see over here, I'm kinda broke. So I can't have me VR16 yellow items. But anyway, these items that I have, they pretty much do the job. Of course, if I were to have those items, I would be a bit stronger, but this is pretty much good also. Right, so first of all, I have over here Hunting's Rage. As you can see, I have 5 pieces of it, all armor or all medium armor, and I have 3 of them with impenetrable status over here, and 2 of them with Manda Stones increased effect, divines. There we go. So this is pretty much my Hunting Rage set. As you can see, I have stamina enchantment on all of them. If I were to have rank 16 yellow items and very good stamina enhancement, I would probably have a lot more stamina, but you know, I hope that in the future I can raise up enough money to make that happen. Over here I have 2 heavy items, Pauldron of the Night Mother and Greaves of the Night Mother with stamina on both of them, one with Manda Stone effect and one with Infused, which increases my armor enchantment effect by 70%. I need to have a little bit more stamina. I have a pretty low stamina pool and I'm looking to increase that. Over here I have Bow of the Night Mother, and check out this this great combination that I have going. So I have 5 pieces of hunting range, which means I get all the set bonuses over here, and I also have 3 pieces on the Night Mother, which gives me weapon critical and weapon damage. Now also over here, jewels, I have endurance because agility is pretty expensive, and at this point in time I'm doing a lot better with endurance. There we go. As you can see, they all have weapon damage enchantment, and they are robust, which gives me more stamina. Over here I'm using a Maul of Agility just for buffs, so this is pretty much unimportant really. Now granted, as I've said before, if these items were all VR16 yellow and they had maximum enchantment, you know, the defense and the stamina output of them and damage also would be a little bit increased. But you know, you can pretty much do with them. You can just test this build. It's very cheap to do it, especially if you can craft this stuff yourself. I can't craft them myself, so I had to ask a friend. But if you just want to give it a quick try, all of these items, all of them are really cheap. You can probably get them all you know, completely done in under 200k gold. So here are my character stats. As you can see, I get to a maximum of 9k maximum magicka. The reason I don't have more of this is because I really don't use anything that uses magicka, so I completely ignored it. Next I have maximum health. As you can see, I have 22k inside of it. This is a pretty decent health pool. It's not great, but it's pretty decent. Maximum stamina, as you can see, I don't really have all that much stamina because I want to have as much stamina recovery as I can get, and 2k pretty much fulfills that role. Okay, I don't really need that huge pool of maximum stamina when it pretty much recharges very fast. Alright, I have pretty much no magicka recovery over here, 500. Again, I don't use any magicka. Health recovery is pretty low right now because I'm stage 3 vampirism, so that explains it a lot. Let's go next. Spell damage, I don't use any. Spell critical, not interested in. Weapon damage, I just show you over here, buffed 3.6k. Weapon critical 60%. Spell resistance and physical resistance unbuffed are pretty low, but buffed they get pretty decent over here. 20k and almost 19k physical resistance. Critical resistance 660, This is pretty great because you know, those criticals don't really hurt me all that much, which pretty much gives me a lot of freedom of escape. Alright, I'm not gonna get into these guys over here, and I'm gonna show you over here my buffs that I'm using. I'm having the warrior boon. Now I tested it a lot of times. I tested the critical damage boon, I tested the critical rate boon, but the warrior for weapon damage seems to be the best choice for this build. I've done 3 extensive tests, and this test with the warrior was giving out the best results. Alright, I have major savagery from this camouflaged hunter over here, and I also have increased max health and stamina. I'm using the Zorga, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Trifle Pocket, which increases my max health by 5k and stamina recovery by 457. This is exactly what I needed because I was pretty low on health, and you know, my stamina recovery wasn't really all that great, but this just fulfills everything, you know, I wanted in order to increase my health and also get some stamina recovery over there. And also I'm a vampire. I have stage 3 vampirism. I don't run around like this. I pretty much run around with stage 1 all the time because there are a lot of places you can get your feed on in Cyrodiil. My champion points, I only have 330 of them. I don't have the complete champion points. But anyway, here is my champion points that I'm using right now. I have 20 in Warlord, which increases the cost of my spells and abilities, my stamina cost I should say, by 6%. I'm looking to increase this as soon as I get more champion points. Most importantly over here I have a lot in Moonkalf because it increases my stamina recovery by 20%. This is huge, really need this on a stamina build. And also very important, Tumbling, which allows me to dodge roll and break free with reduced cost. Okay, this is very good. This is very interesting. You should have this. Over here I have nothing in the Apprentice. I have nothing in the Atronach. I have all my points over here in Mighty because it increases my physical damage by 25%, and also I'm getting more points as I can in precise strikes. Now the reason I'm going for Mighty and I'm not sharing them around over here is, again, I did extensive testing and I got to the conclusion that Mighty is the best way to go. Over here I have 20 points in resistance, 22 actually, I should say. This is the amount of damage taken from critical hits by 8.7%. And keep in mind I also have 3 pieces with critical resistance, which gets me a total of 220 critical resistance. And combine it with this skill, with this champion point, and it really makes a difference. I have 45 points in Hardy and Elemental Defender. Reduces poison, disease and magic damage dealt to you by 14%. This is very good to use. And also flame, frost and shock damage dealt to you by 14.3%. And over here I have nothing in the Lord. So this is pretty much all my champion points. There can be tweaks, you know, you can play around with them, you know, depending on your play style. But I got to the conclusion that these are pretty much the best way to go for this build.